Welcome to the Music Nut Program. I'm John. Thank you so much for joining me today. And welcome back to It's Thin Lizzy Thursday. Today, I will be discussing Thin Lizzy's 11th album, Renegade. This was released on November 15, 1981, on Vertigo Records in the UK, Mercury Records in Canada, Warner Brothers Records in the United States. This would not be a very successful album for Thin Lizzy commercially. It would hit number 38 on the UK charts, and it did not certify. And it went to number 157 on the US top 200 album charts. This would be the first album to feature Darren Wharton on keyboards, and it would be the second and last album to feature Snowy Whites on lead guitars. To go over the band at this point, we have Phil Lynott as main songwriter, bass, and lead vocals. We got Brian Downey on drums and percussion. We got Scott Gorham on guitars and backing vocals, Snowy White on guitars and backing vocals, Darren Wharton on keyboards, organ, mini moog, and backing vocals. So, with this album, we do not have Jim Fitzpatrick's wonderful artwork. Instead, we have a photo here taken by Graham Hughes. Now, the reason they didn't have Jim Fitzpatrick here is because Vertigo refused to give the band a budget to hire someone to do an album cover for them. Now, once again, we don't have the iconic Thin Lizzy logo, but if you do pick up the remastered edition, you have the logo here. There we go. And one thing I have to say about this remaster, they did an excellent job with the liner notes and the pictures on this. Here's a picture of the band. Now, if you look at this picture here, as well as the picture on the back of the album, you notice they're a quartet. We don't have Darren Wharton featured here, even though he is an official member at this point. However, if you do open up the liner notes and you go through the pictures, we do get a picture of Darren Wharton holding the flag that was on the cover in the insert, just like we have on the back here. So, we have Chris Sangarides producing the album along with Thin Lizzy. You have heard Chris Sangarides' work. Here's some of the albums he's done, and he's not just a hard rock and heavy metal producer. He has done albums such as Y&T's Mean Streak. He has done Anvil's Metal on Metal, and This Is 13, among other Anvil releases. And he's featured prominently in Anvil's wonderful documentary, The Story of Anvil. Regardless what you think of their music, the documentary is excellent. He also did Gary Moore's Back on the Streets. He had a hand in producing Black Sabbath's Eternal Idol. He did several albums by the Tragically Hip, including the wonderful Fully Completely. He did a few albums by Concrete Blonde, most notably Bloodletting, which was their breakthrough here in the States. And of course, he did the seminal album by Samantha Fox, I Want to Have Some Fun. The title track's pretty good. It's catchy. Anyway, let's go into Renegade. Now, if you have read this book by Martin Popoff, which is a panel book, Honesty is No Excuse, Thin Lizzy on Record, I talk extensively about this album. And I said in my interview with Martin in the book that this was my least favorite Thin Lizzy album. Is it still my least favorite? Well, we'll talk about that when I review the albums at the end of the series. So a lot of these quotes, and I didn't read this before I did my homework today and listened to the album a few more times. A lot of these quotes I tell you here, you're going to see these in the book. As much as I'm not a big fan of this album, I love Angel of Death. This is one of my favorite songs by Thin Lizzy. And Darren Wharton really makes his presence known at the get-go. with that slow burn and that keyboard and intro before that galloping bass comes in, the drums kick in, the guitars kick in. Excellent way to start an album. This is a cool epic where the keyboards actually make the song heavier. You could rarely say that about a song by a hard rock or a heavy metal band, but the keyboards work on this. We don't have unison guitars on here. We don't have too many of them on this album. This is probably the least unison guitars that we get on a Thin Lizzy album since probably Vagabonds of the Western World, where we didn't have them yet. We had more on Nightlife, in my opinion. But this song is killer. Wicked guitar solo on here. Phil's vocals, yeah, they're getting less soulful, more flat. Wonderful lyric delivery, so much passion in this song. This is an outstanding opener. Renegade, the title track, very mellow, even more mellow than your usual Thin Lizzy out ballad. But this is really, really cool with Phil taking on the role of the renegade. We got some very tasteful guitar work here, especially in the call and response in the last verse. It's a pretty cool tune. It's a little different for a ballad for them, but and it's long. It's 6 minutes, but I do like the song. There is a certain elegance about it. The pressure will blow. Now, this is more your traditional Thin Lizzy. We got the unison guitars on here, probably more on this song than any other song on the album. I think there's a nice vocal melody going over the chords and the verses. Nice solos on this song as well. This is a pretty cool tune. I don't know if it's one of their best, but it's one of the best songs on the album, certainly. Now, Leave This Town. Now, from the first time I heard this song, I'm like, this is Molly Hatchet. Molly Hatchet came into the studio, recorded this song, and then they walked out and they put it out on Thin Lizzy's Renegade. If you read the liner notes to the Renegade album that I just showed up, Phil says he was trying to write a song like ZZ Top. Yeah, it sounds a little like ZZ Top. More of a southern boogie like Molly Hatchet to me. But that last verse and that low vocal by Phil, and he does more of this on this album. I mean, he was doing these really low vocals at times, starting with Do Anything You Want To from Black Rose. That last verse, yeah, he's trying to sound like Billy Gibbons. It doesn't really work. It's not that it's a bad song. It just doesn't sound like Thin Lizzy at all. When you go into the lyrics, where do you go into the recording, the guitars, the, the delivery? This is Molly Hatchet to me. I mean, that's just how I feel about the song. Yeah, it rocks a little bit, but gonna leave this town, gonna leave this town, gonna leave this town. I mean, to me, I'm waiting for Danny Joe Brown to come in and do a duet with him. And I said that in the book, just let you know. Anyway, that's my piece on that song. Hollywood, Down on Your Luck was the single. It only hit number 53 in the UK. It deserved a better fate. Yes, you got the keyboards on here on the choruses, but they're only there for flavor. They're just there to add to the mood, and I think they really work. I love the great use of analogies on this song. I think Phil's really feeling this song. There's a great delivery on it. The guitar solos are really cool on it. You got a little bit of unison guitar on here. The drumming on it's really cool. Yeah, this is my favorite song on the album next to Angel of Death. No one told him. Not a fan of this song. The riffs are okay. We do have a good bridge on it, but I think it's just too poppy. I think Chris Sangarides usually did a fantastic job with production. This was one of his earlier production jobs, and I think he reined the band in a little too much on this album. It works on some songs, but not on a lot of. I mean, it worked on Angel of Death, certainly, and even Hollywood. But I think it's just too glossy, too poppy. The lyric is just it's not a Phil was a fantastic lyricist, but this is not one of his finest moments, in my opinion. Now, Fats. Lizzy goes jazz, and I dig it. I like when bands try to do things that are different and interesting. As long as the song is there and it's well executed, I think this works. Interesting to hear a Thin Lizzy song without a guitar solo in it. We got a piano solo here from Darren Wharton, which is quite tasty. Very well done. The bass playing here, I think, sounds like Phil's playing a fretless to me. If any of you in the comments know if he's playing a fretless or not, please let me know. But this is very well done. The guitars are only here for color. I think it's a cool tune. Outlier, but yes. But then Lizzy had outliers throughout their career. Most of them worked, like this one. Mexican Blood. Hmm. Not a fan of this song. I like the flamenco guitar in the beginning and those guitars that come in right after that flamenco solo. And then the song just loses me in its presentation. Is there a xylophone on this? I mean, I'm not really into this track. It just doesn't work for me lyrically. I think the harmonies are too poppy. It's like this Caribbean sound to it. Mm, not a fan of this track. If it's getting dangerous is the closer. Now, I said this in the book I just held up. This sounds like something that could have been a outstanding anthem to end the album with a bang, and it just makes the album go out with a whimper. I don't like the way the keyboards are used here, the way it's recorded, the spoken word vocal in the beginning from Phil. Very reflective vocal. Phil was doing more and more of this on their albums because I think he knew his time was short. I just don't think it works very well. I mean, the execution, the production, I don't think the song is written well, but I don't think it works in the presentation. I think it should have been more lean and mean, and it should have the production should not have been so glossy. We should have ended with a banger on here. And instead we don't. And it ends an album which is kind of hit and miss to a close. So this is Renegade from 1981. What are your thoughts on this album? Do you feel that this is their best album like Martin Popoff does? Do you think it's one of their worst like I do? Are you in the middle on this? Do you think I'm a little too harsh on this? Do you think the keyboards provided a good addition to the band? Do you think it made them more poppy? Do you think the production is fine for this album, or do you think it's just reined in? What do you think of Phil's vocals on here? What do you think of Snowy White and Scott Gorham's guitar work on this album? Please let me know in the comments. Please join me next week on It's Thin Lizzy Thursday. Well, I will go over Thin Lizzy's 12th and last studio album from 1983, Thunder and Lightning. Just to give you some programming notes, the Accept Up to the Limit series is continuing on my friend John Clauser's channel, My Music Corner. This week, just as you're watching this, the episode for their 2017 album, The Rise of Chaos, would have already been released. Our guest this week will be Metal Roger, who you best know from Mike Ladano's wonderful YouTube channel, Grab a Stack of Rock. I just put out a album war episode. I have 3 albums going at it for the best album known as the Black Album. I discussed the Damned, Metallica, and Prince's versions of the album with that same name. That's doing really well. Thank you all so much for your comments on all the videos that I do. I really appreciate the report that we have in the comments. I also will be putting out a new album after show in the next few days, so be on the lookout for that. Yes, I will be talking about another band from the 1990s who put out a follow-up album to an album that had been very, very successful. I also will be putting out a top 10 albums for 1990 in the next few days, just to let you know about that as well. So, until I see you again, do what you love, and I'll talk to you soon.